a content strategist means being strategic about all kinds of things beyond the content itself. We have a ton of content work behind the screen that impacts what gets on the screen. So in this video, we're going to move away from the what of content strategy to talk a bit more about the how. A how that's more philosophical, a little bit squishy, yes. It's the how of thinking and being a content strategist. And it's one of my favorite topics in this class. It's on strategic partnering. And I want to cover it because to publish awesome quality, a whole lot has to be going right in your team, processes, tools, data, your budget, prioritization, and leadership. If you come to content strategy from content creation, this may be a change in your to-do list. And you'll want to think about expanding the bounds of what you consider to be your responsibility. This may feel a bit trepidatious at first because it does run up against what's outside the span of your control. It's also where difficulties push a lot of people just to flat out give up. But I would say, let's challenge that. Isn't that spot exactly the right spot for building partnerships? Let's take a quick step back. When you work in content, maybe the most common mode of working is creation. And it's one mode of working. So what are the others? I read this piece about a furniture company that got me thinking about this question. And I think it offers a nice analog. That there's this company called Herman Miller. It's very popular. They've been around for a really long time. They did coin this idea, modes of work. And they did a bunch of research over many years to understand the purpose and activity that goes on in an office space so that they could design furniture to fit, but more importantly, to facilitate all of the work modes that happen. And they really made a point of calling out the fact that these modes are nonlinear and they are not a process in fashion. So how do they get at a huddle or conversation, a chat, or a place to process and respond versus contemplation or to divide and conquer? Well, what if, as a content person, you have modes of work? How would you categorize and name those modes and make space for them to happen in your week? How could you be more aware of just peppering your time with those different modes? I'm totally making these up right now on the screen, but you could fill them in. And I would add one more. And I think it's essential for being a content strategist, and that is strategic partnership. It's a mode that's unique to strategists compared to other content roles. So let's talk about that and make it a little easier to understand. So what is it exactly, strategic partnership, and how do you get into it? This question really is my simple way into that mode. Why wait? Why wait for assignments? As content creators, we're practically trained to wait for partners to come to us and request work from us. But why wait? Seriously, that is the question. That is your entree. Great ideas, well, they can come from everyone in any area, and you probably have many, so why just let them sit? When you can stand up, you can engage in the give and take of a partnership. That can happen on behalf of content. Strategic partnering is not just having ideas and sharing them. I bet you do that all the time in your day now as a collaborator or creator, but strategic partnering is proactively persuading teams to do something with your ideas. And I think that's what makes it different. Content strategy takes this stance with the work that you generate for yourself, based on opportunities that you target. Specifically, find places at work where you have impact. Be proactive, pitching projects. Work doesn't always have to come to you as a request. So for me, actually, it's more satisfying when it doesn't all the time. Content strategists drive change. At the core of our work, we find opportunities and advocate for the investment and the effort to capture them. So without strategic partnership, we fall behind and we lose ground. And yes, this means you go and ask people who normally ask you to do work for them to do work for you. No one ever told me this, but when I put it together, it just kind of melted my brain. Suddenly, a whole new world opened up to me. And if you're buried, just totally buried under trying to keep up with all of the demand of things being asked of you, it sounds like I'm on another planet, I'm sure. I've been there. I can sympathize. Like, how is this even possible? What are you talking about? So, I don't know. Well, even if you can squeeze this in just once, try it and see what you notice. I think you'll see a world of difference. If you can, get out there and take some of the work you've done in this class so far. Could be an audit or a gap analysis, some testing data, and use that as inputs to creating a proper pitch. You could propose a solution, propose a new vision, or a project even if you have some thoughts on steps to take. I've got a couple links at the end of this video that give you more information about the formal elements that go into a pitch. It's more of a how-to, if that's helpful to you. But take your pitch back to your team. Take it to teams that are not the usual folks that you work with. Especially in a large corporation, you may have to do quite a bit of legwork to find the teams who will benefit from solving the content problem or pursuing the opportunity that you're spelling out. And here's where all of the internal networking can really help. But at Intuit, where I work, I've spent a lot of time just meeting with people, introducing myself, what the team does, skill sets, and asking them, hey, is this a problem for you? Like, what would a solution do for you? What would it do for our customers? And yes, it might be the wrong tree, but they can also tell me who would be better to talk to. And then I go and do the same thing again. And just keep doing it until I find the people. Unfortunately, there's no content problem directory where I can just look up contact names associated with certain problems or opportunities. But when you do content strategy, you do get very practiced at approaching people with pitches. Sometimes it can feel like begging. Maybe that's a mode of work for me. It's definitely not beneath me. But so what about that feeling, that sort of begging, dragged down to the bone sort of feeling? How do you keep pushing through that? Please check out this wonderful video. It's made by Derek Muller. He is actually a science educator. But in this video, he talks about a psychological phenomenon that can keep you from reaching your goals, like AKA doing strategic work. It's a video about learned helplessness. And I know from a lot of workplaces, working environments, they can make it very easy to just sort of habituate and to settle back in and conform to the path of least resistance. And people might not even be aware that it's happening. It's not the same as quitting or giving up. It's very subtle and much more passive. But when this becomes rote, it can trap you. And it doesn't help your content strategy either. So you just can't wait for someone else to step in and solve all the problems you find at work. I'm telling you, you'll be waiting forever, probably. If you see a problem, go solve it and just keep at it. Because again, I guarantee no one is as close or cares about content as much as you. And even if you have to do some initial work and it doesn't go forward, save it. I swear it will come back because the problem grows along with the pain. And when someone comes back asking you about that thing you proposed way back when, you can just pull out your slides. This happens so often. Like maybe the timing is just off, but the work will not go to waste. When people make the move from content to creation to content strategy, I think often the biggest shift is in your head, brought about by the efforts to become a strategic partner. There's this whole idea of mentality. I think there's probably some French philosopher somewhere, mentalite, who define them as these cognitive frameworks for understanding things around you as values and norms that really sort of strike your reactions to things and responses. And it's a very unique kind of signature form of awareness that seeds your behavior. Mentality is different from knowledge. They're in two different realms. And you can take classes and complete projects to acquire knowledge. And then these are really more like the facts or skills of a certain expertise or area. Mentality is more your mindset. It will help you succeed in content strategy. And the coolest part about it is that you can influence yours into being. So learn to be and think like a content strategist. And I think, again, it just fits right in with that mode kind of work and work at both things at the same time. Well, let's end with 2 tips to getting really great at strategic partnering. First is don't stop yourself before you even start. Obviously, there are things that are completely out of your control that can't be changed, but I think most of you are probably well aware of what those are and know when you can and can't afford to take on a struggle. But what if, by default, you just allowed yourself to think that things could be changed? Or you erred on the side of believing you had control? Would you work differently if that were your mentality? Again, just don't stop yourself before you start. I think updating your resume would probably be more satisfying. I think each of us will find their own way, their own level of persistence, and finding that inspiration for what you do is the treasure. So go find what it is and go get it and keep pressing. Tip number 2, you don't have to accept everything the way that it is. Maybe there are times when it's better to accept a reality, when doing so helps you feel free or feel better. That kind of acceptance is about not denying yourself. In a business, though, which is what we're talking about, things don't just exist. My least favorite explanation for things is that's the way it's always been done. In a business, things have been built by groups of people for particular goals at specific times. Okay, it was somebody's job. And whether that solution is still effective or relevant is a good thing to check. Because what is new, it inevitably becomes old. Problems usually grow over time from a solution that succeeded. And maybe in the past, it was a great win, but then over time, it doesn't keep up. It doesn't adapt. And the requirements internally and the dynamics externally are changing, and it just falls out and becomes kind of broken. And actually, that spot, that place, is a really great place to do content strategy from. It fits in really well there with strategic partnering. And this whole area, that whole space, is a discipline called systems thinking. And we're going to dig into that a bit more in the next video.